I mean, I quite like the idea of them going down that kind of isolated point of view, kind of haunted house sort of experience, but I think they're going to get to a point where it's just kind of... Because there'll be so many of them.
Wait a minute. Can you hear that?
Yeah, I can hear you.
No, I mean, it's like a crackling. I would pay to play that game where you're Rutger Hauer just furiously wanking people.
Welcome to episode Shit Yourself.
Yeah, I've got down here episode 15, but I'm really not sure how many we've done so far.
Well,
so,
is it 15 that have gone live, and then there might be 17 because there's the 2 lost episodes, one because it's dire, and the other because we forgot to upload it?
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think we've done nearly 20 then. We're on the road to 20, Chris.
Yeah. Which, considering we've had 2 bouts of Christmas episodes in Game of the Year, that's pretty shocking.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, isn't it? Right.
But, at the same time, everyone else gets to get away with having big gaps between their episodes, so fuck you.
Yeah, true.
Exactly.
True. Yeah. So, how are we doing?
I'm
doing
good.
All right?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah. I'm okay. Yeah, not a lot's going on. Well, I'd say not a lot's going on. Moving house soon, so a lot of messing around, packing, unpacking, looking at shit, trying to get internet sorted for November 3rd, that kind of thing.
Have you done the really annoying thing where you're packing stuff up to move and you find something like a book or something you've not found in a while and you spend ages looking at it, looking at it instead of actually, packing and doing the job?
Yeah, that's exactly what that's why I'm demoted in terms of packing. I don't do as much packing because I'm too slow, apparently. Little does Becky know that it's all a ruse. I know that I'm slow. I do it on purpose so I don't have to do it. So
yeah, is this because you're going to have to do the majority of the lifting at the other end?
A lot of the lifting and probably the unpacking as well. So yeah.
Well,
it's like flexi time. I'm working it back. I'll work it back.
I've already said I'd help you move. Because
you did.
Because I've got a day's holiday left to take, so if needs be, I'll book the day off and help you.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I think we've got quite a lot of people helping us, to be fair. Like, there's my parents, and I think Becky's parents might be helping.
Alright, well, fuck it. I'll book the same day off, but I'll play Call of Duty and update you on what it's like.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to have to do that, because I probably won't have internet, so...
True.
So, yeah. Yeah, how about you? How are things going? Alright?
Alright, yeah. Just been working and generally playing games. Got really quite back into Zelda after my fiance finished it and then did all the shrines and she was just tearing Breath of the Wild a new arse. So I was like, I need to get to playing this, because I realised watching her how much of it I'd missed and like I'd not.
That it's actually probably Game of the Year.
Yeah, I've said Mario is going to have to shit lightning, as is Xenoblade, to top it, and I think they're the only 2 things at the minute that for me might. I mean, I still really like Yakuza 0, but that's because I don't think I've played enough Zelda, and now I'm a bit like, shit, this is really, really, really good.
Well,
like I knew it was stunning, but I didn't realise just how stunning.
Well, the thing is, though, right? The only thing with the Yakuza games, granted, I've not played them properly this time. I will do, but I've not done yet. They're not doing anything different from the other Yakuza games, really.
No, I think 6
That's what I
will.
don't think. Yeah, 6 probably will. But what I mean is, like, Zelda is kind of like, in my opinion, the best iteration of Zelda that there's been.
It's
like,
a complete
technically.
reinvention of itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, there's still stuff that when I'm playing it, I'm going, oh my god, I'd love that to be in the game. But it's not, so it's like, you know, like the dungeons?
Yeah.
Like the old dungeons. I'd love there to be, like, more ruins where you're going through old dungeons. So it's like the puzzles have been solved to get through the dungeon. But then the problem is that it's just a bit decrepit.
Yeah,
and
so you've got to work out ways around it and that kind of thing.
Like, imagine going through a water temple that are completely dried up.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, they kind of... Twilight Princess had a bit of that. Like, the dungeons in Twilight Princess were quite... Well, some of them anyway, were quite meant to be quite similar to the ones in Ocarina of Time. From what I heard, I don't know how true that actually is, but that was one of the ideas, because it's the same kind of version of Hyrule, essentially. It's just in a different time. But, yeah, I see what you mean. Like, that would have been quite interesting to do.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Well, that's for another episode entirely,
that's
really.
Not a scary game.
That is not
Today we're
a scary game.
Getting deep into the heart of fear. That's what we're doing today.
Spooky games. That's what it's all about.
It's a horror game special because of Halloween.
See what I'm going to do in the editing, Chris, is I'm going to put a load of Halloween-esque sound effects. So when we say spooky games, there's going to be a lightning strike.
We got like lightning bolts. People going, woo.
Yeah. Exactly.
Just make sure you get like the scary woo and don't get the pitch wrong on it, because otherwise it will just sound a bit camp. Also, end credits, Monster Mash.
Oh, really?
Why, what were you thinking?
I don't know.
It's got to be the Monster Mash.
Well, we could have the Monster Mash. We could. I'll consider it. It'll be a surprise for you.
Let's have the Monster Mash or Dance Macabre.
Dance Macabre could be quite good.
Yeah.
Well, either way.
Either way.
But
anyway.
It's a surprise, a spooky surprise.
Yeah, it's a jump scare.
God. Right, well, more on them later.
Yeah,
so...
Anyway, yeah.
So, yeah, with you playing a lot of games, have you played any spooky games? If not, it's fine. But
I attempted to.
What did you try and play?
You know when they updated PlayStation Plus and they got Amnesia?
Oh, yeah.
I went, right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this properly. Janie was out. I'd done some drinking. And I downloaded it and I went, you know what? I'm going to turn all lights off and I'm going to play it. And I'm going to try and play it in like maximum scare mode. And then there was a massive bang in my hallway and I was like, nope, fuck this, lights on, game off. I was like, do you want to know how scared I got?
I bet I was pretty scared.
I put fucking Splatoon on. That's how tame I needed to go. I was on like fucking Mario Kart.
That's the game equivalent of sitting in the corner and sucking your thumb.
I was like, nope, fuck it, done, 1,000 times done.
I was going to say, Chris, like, you deal with real life fear. Like, if I heard a bang in the hallway of in your building, I'd be terrified. Like, you know what I mean? You're not selling it as how scary that bang in the hallway could actually have been.
Yeah, this is true. It could have been it could have been fucking anything.
Exactly. Could have been a prostitute falling over. Could have been murderer.
Could have had that.
I don't know.
We've had all sorts. It's been, yeah. But it's like, that's what I mean. It was like, I got myself into I was like, I'm going to try and do this like as immersively as possible. And I tried to get into as much sort of atmosphere as I could. And it was literally, I went from 0 to gibbering baby in like 3, maybe 4 seconds. And it was just kind of like, nope, I'm done, I'm done.
It's a very slow burn game as well, Amnesia. Like, you have to play for like a good few hours before it actually gets properly scary.
Yeah. I mean, the weird thing is, with a lot of those games where it's like a POV horror game, essentially, like Slender and stuff like that, they're all a bit walking simulator.
Well,
it's just wandering around and seeing what you find.
But the thing is with Amnesia, there's puzzles to solve and stuff like that, which is quite good. Like, I couldn't really get into Amnesia. I found it quite boring towards the end, and I never finished it. But yeah, I found it quite boring. It just kind of became a bit of a thing where you just hide in cupboards and wait for whatever's chasing you to go into a different room, and it stops being quite tense after a while. Like, it has its moments, but yeah, and I think as well it was very overplayed, like the whole like YouTube streamer community around it.
It was a big streaming thing, wasn't it? Because I mean, that's the other thing. You've watched enough people with annoying names and racist attitudes screaming at it that you're just kind of like, right, I'm done.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of games like that out there now, and I think it's done well. Like, being like the forerunner for a lot of them. Like, it was out before PT and everything, and I mean, I think, yeah, it was a good couple of years, I think, before PT was out, and it's done really well. In fact, like, a lot of that point of view horror, any of them, like Alien Isolation has got a lot of inspiration, I think, anyway, from games like Amnesia and that kind of thing, and it's kind of where horror games are going, really, unfortunately.
Yeah, they're going more down the... I mean, I quite like the idea of them going down that kind of isolated point of view, kind of haunted house sort of experience, but I think you're going to end up with the conventions becoming really tired really quickly. So, you know, like in horror films where it's like, there's clearly something behind that door, don't go around that corner.
Yeah.
Someone's going to turn out to be a killer that we didn't think was, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like those conventions get really played out. But at the same time, I think the open world survival horrors are as well. They're all kind of, oh crap, I need to do this before it gets dark.
Yeah.
I'd like to spin that on its head. I want them to do an open world survival game where you're a vampire, so you can only come out at night. And it's all about how you get into people's houses and how you just do stuff.
See, well, we'll get onto that kind of thing later on, really. Like, why I think that might be a bit hard to do. But, yeah, I think there's a lot that probably can be done. And that's one of the things that horror does best, is that it kind of uses tried and tested convention and kind of puts it on its head.
Yeah.
I think that happens, like, that's what horror's always been about, and it's always been, and when it starts getting tired, that's when it stops being interesting. And I think now you kind of, well, I hope we're coming to the end of that kind of Amnesia, walking around a spooky castle, getting chased by a monster, let's hide in a cupboard, it's gone, kind of thing. It's, you know what I mean? Like, that kind of stuff. Granted, it is very effective when done properly. Like, look at, like, say, Alien Isolation. That's freaking terrifying when it's done properly, but, yeah, I just kind of hope it moves on a bit. And talking about the walking simulator kind of first-person horror game, I actually finished a game.
Jesus.
For once. No, granted,
when
it's only about 5 hours long.
When you've said you finished a game, there needs to be like a wolf howling and demonic laughter, lightning crackling, all that sort of stuff needs to happen when you say you've done that.
I'll try and put that in. That could be quite good.
Because that's like, how have you done that? What did you make a pact with to get the time to finish a game?
Well, it was only like 5 hours long, 5-6 hours long. It wasn't a long game by any means, and it certainly wasn't a hard game. It was Observer on the PC.
Oh.
Yeah, kind of done by the people who did that Layers of Fear. I can't remember the developer name right now, but yeah, they did that horror game Layers of Fear that was kind of like not very much, not like Amnesia. You were never really chased in it. It was more about like weird perspective and puzzle solving and stuff like that, and it was good. But Observer's like a different take on it. Observer's a blend of horror and cyberpunk.
Yeah,
I think you play as Rutger Hauer.
I was going to say this is the Rutger Hauer one, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, and it's like you play a detective, like trying to find your son, but it's all in this apartment building. But like you kind of mind jack into like these murder victims and like kind of get a little short puzzle sequence or a little short perspective bit about their life. Everything's really bloody obvious in it. Like all the puzzles are quite easy. I think the hardest thing was like when they try and make you do a bit of a stealth bit and it's just a bit unclear as to what you're supposed to do. But other than that, it's very much a walking simulator in a really interesting environment.
Cool.
Like it's really like they have these kind of sequences where you jack into someone to like see their memories. You jack in, you don't jack off. You jack in.
I was going to say, it's like, Jesus Christ. There's a fucking games have you become one of those boys playing them tick games?
Now, I would pay to play that game where you're Rutger Hauer just furiously wanking people. Well,
just paraphrasing the end of Blade where he's seen semen beams glimmer, and it's like, what? You aren't going to get wit that quick ever again.
Yeah. But, yeah, it's very good, is what I'm saying. Like, the atmosphere is amazing. It's kind of like if Blade Runner... It's kind of like Blade Runner, Ghost in the Shell, kind of mixed with a bit of, like, your old school kind of haunted house stuff.
Sounds really
like
good.
It's got a really fun atmosphere to it, and like I say, it's billed as a horror game. It's not particularly scary.
Yeah.
It does what a lot of modern horror does, where it's not scary, it's just jumpy, and it just kind of becomes like jump scares and that kind of thing. It's not, there's no real tension to it, but it's a very interesting story anyway. And yeah, I think it's kind of like, I don't think it's worth the money. It's quite expensive for what it is, and it's coming out on PS4 soon.
It's out on the PS4 now.
Has it come out now?
Yeah, I think people have streamed it. I thought when I watched it, I watched the PS4 stream, but I might be wrong.
No, either way, there's not meant to be. Well, there's no difference between the versions from what I've heard and what I've read about it. But but yeah, it's quite good. Like, all those sequences where you're kind of going into someone's memories and stuff. They're really interesting, like little puzzles and really interesting things that it does with the environment. But essentially, you just press forward.
That's the thing then, isn't it? It's kind of just...
I don't know how much of a game it actually is.
Walking on a rail isn't really... It's about as scary as a ghost train, isn't it? Because you're kind of just going forward and you know nothing's going to happen.
That's essentially what it is. I think I got game over once, which was when it was like a stealth sequence and I got caught by whatever it was I was meant to be hiding from. And that's the only time ever, like, there was ever an element that I experienced anyway, where there was ever an element of failure. Yeah. Like, and I mean, I don't know. It's a really difficult one because I like, you know me, Chris, like, horror and cyberpunk are like my favourite kind of things, really. Like, I'm glad that there's a game where I can be Rutger Hauer, because you don't know how long I've wanted to be Rutger Hauer for. Like, I didn't realise you're actually Rutger Hauer. It's great. Grumpy old man simulator, wandering through a cyberpunk dystopia. It's great for that. But, yeah, if you're talking about, like, how good of a game it actually is, it's alright. it's
not, like that thing where it's like, it's good in terms of its genre, and what it is, but it's not like, I mean, even amongst that sort of genre, it's kind of, it's alright.
It's middling. Yeah. I mean, it's certainly no PT. And I'd even argue that, like, Amnesia and whatever does this, like, the moments in that game where it tries to do what Amnesia does, like, in terms of being chased by something, they're nowhere near as effective as they are in Amnesia. And, yeah, I mean, the only other thing I can really kind of compare it to would be Soma, which is also by the people who did Amnesia.
Oh, the underwater lab one, isn't it? So
yeah, which is that's better than Amnesia. Like, you should be playing. Like, if you want a good example of a horror game like that, like, that's great. Soma's really good. Soma's like the better version of this game, really. But this game's got a ton more polish and looks probably a bit nicer, I'd say.
Okay.
But yeah. I mean, you don't really play horror games, so
no, I'm not a big.
So I'm not sure.
I'm not a big horror boy. I play games to escape from the horror of real life. So
yeah, because you actually live in horror,
in urban legend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh.
But yeah, if it ever comes on PlayStation Plus, try it. It's only 4 hours and it's not really that scary.
Cool.
So yeah.
So what you're saying is it's a horror game for complete wimps.
Yeah, kind of.
Like that.
Yeah.
You got to bear in mind my idea of a horror game in my head. This is how detached from horror as a gaming genre I was. As a kid, I saw the weird zombie face on the front of Resident Evil 2 and went, that's probably not for me, that. And instead, I was like, I think that was the cut-off point. I was like, right, I could go down this route and I could be killing zombies and playing this and doing whatnot.
Edgy horror boy.
Yeah, and instead I went, ooh, Final Fantasy VIII, and then went, I'll go down this route, quite like this route. This route's safe and cuddly.
See, I thought you were going to say, let's play that game where you chuck pigs at people as a pink-haired little man.
What, Tombo?
Like, yeah, exactly.
I was playing Tombo.
Like that was like, that was what I consider to be the complete opposite, but it's like, it's still great. Like, Tombo's amazing.
Yeah, to be fair, the closest I got to a horror game was playing Medieval.
But it's a really good game.
Exactly.
So,
what more do you want from a game other than...
But I think that's your thing. Like, you like the kind of the funnier side of games anyway. Like, I think that what Medieval does, it's still got that kind of like haunted house vibe to it, but it's a very funny game. Yeah, it's
like cartoonish and really, it's like really campy and like schlocky kind of stuff. Because I mean,
like Saturday morning cartoon kind of thing, Count Duckula-esque.
Yeah, because I mean, I was thinking about it before. It's like, even when it comes to like horror films, my frame of reference is I like all the 1930s sort of weird Universal ones, and some of the Hammer horror films are just ridiculous.
Oh yeah, they're hilarious.
But I think it was just like slasher films and like all the stuff that was coming around from like the mid-70s onwards, and all like the modern like torture porn stuff and all that kind of thing, just all completely passed me by, because I looked at it and went, I'm not fucking interested in that. I was like, someone went, oh, you gotta see this film, it's about some guys in a bathroom getting tortured. And I was like, right. He went, it's called Saw. And I went, why is it called? He was like, I couldn't give a shit about the film. We got shown a bit of it when we were at college, because, you know, we did film studies, so we saw more shit than we probably should have. And it was like, I don't care. This is bollocks. But then, inexplicably, when we got shown that bit of Brain Dead, and everyone in our second year class was going white, and you and me were sat there, pissing ourselves laughing at it.
Because they're funny films. Yeah, those Peter Jackson ones are hilarious. They're great.
We were absolutely howling laughing at that film. And everyone else in the class was looking at us like we were psychopaths.
But it's funny, though, because it's like, when you start mixing things like horror and comedy, like, that's when it can start getting a bit uncomfortable for people, I think. And because, like, you look at something like Saw, like, I wouldn't argue Saw is a horror film. It's not a horror film. It's a shit thriller with gore in it. It's not horror, but it's like, it's very dour, and it's very kind of like, you can kind of almost predict, like, it's going to be very over the top.
It was a franchising option in a film, wasn't it? Because they just went,
exactly.
we can milk this.
But it's not only that, it's like the actual where the horror aspect comes into it, it's quite detached. Like, it's just body parts. It's not like there's no psychology behind it or anything. Like, people probably argue that there is, but it's all just a pretty shit serial killer story that, you know, that no one else would really be bothered to tell.
And there's like 9 films worth of it as well, because that's the other thing that I don't really like about horror, and it's that thing where they just kind of go, guess what? We're going to milk this within an inch of its life. Yeah, and it's kind of that's the bit that always put me off, because in my head, got to bear in mind, like, my first frame of reference with sequels and stuff was literally the Star Wars trilogy and Superman 2. Yeah. And I was like, they follow on from one another in Superman 1. So, in my head, sequels should never have been like a standalone thing. And a lot of the slasher films were just like really fucking tenuous links between them. I was like, nah.
It was always just like you either follow the main character or it just follows the killer to a different group of people.
And the really lazy thing was the main character from one film dies at the beginning of the next one.
Yeah, that was never... See, again, it's like horror and comedy. That's one of the reasons why I thought Scream was really good, because they killed, like, probably the most famous actress in that film within, like, the first 30 seconds, and it was just like, okay, well...
Yeah, and it was like... it was that
the cover girl's dead.
Well, the other thing with Scream that they did that was really clever was at the beginning with Drew Barrymore was kind of, conventions-wise, she was the fucking slasher movie heroine.
Yeah.
She was the plucky little babysitter on her own who was like, don't fuck with me, and then got wrecked.
But it's also like, as well, like, the horror of Scream as well is like that twist of there actually being 2 of them. It seems a bit old hat now, but at the time, that was a really bloody good twist. It's like, I was thinking about this before, it's like, horror is one of those things that, like, it doesn't necessarily need to be well written, it needs to have an atmosphere. But when you've got that, like, mixture of the two, where the story's actually good, but the atmosphere is also kind of, like, really good as well, like, that's my shit.
There's literally, there was a really interesting thing that I remember reading when we were at uni, was they were talking about there being benchmark genre films in terms of horror. And they occur more often in horror than they do in any other genre. So, like, action movies that evolved from the Western, it was like there was points where it shifts. And it
kind of goes like Western war movie, action movie.
It goes like Western war movie, buddy cop film, then like revenge stuff where you've got a muddy background to the main character, and then it splits into look criminals or superhero movies.
Yeah.
Whereas horror's kind of got those touch points where it goes, literary adaptations was kind of where it started, because that was where film got its start. And then it became more trippy and psychological. And then it became like slasher movies.
But you gotta think, like, all those slasher movies as well, like horror is always a reflection of what troubles society at the time, really. Like, if you look at, like, with those literary adaptations like Dracula and Frankenstein, they were all responses to kind of things that were happening at the time, like...
Oh, Dracula's syphilis, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like syphilis and sexually transmitted diseases. Frankenstein's a fear of science, of progress and morality and that kind of stuff. But then, like, by the time you get to, like, the 70s, well, you've had Ted Bundy, you've had John Wayne Gacy, you've had the Hillside Stranglers, you've had all those, like, super horrific things actually happen in real life, and it's like, well, what's scarier than a stranger coming to victimize you? Yeah. You know what I mean? That's where that comes from. But then, like, now, you've got those torture porn films, and, well, I say now, I think they're probably about 10 years past it now, but it's like, that was a big thing for a while. Yeah, but now, in fact, like, now the big thing is what's happening in games as well. It's from the first person perspective horror film, the found footage horror film.
Yeah, it's gone like, it's looped back round on itself. Like, they went, that Blair Witch thing was a good idea. And you've got all these things. I mean, they've been going for a while, but I mean, they've been going long enough to be properly parodied as well, because that was the thing that South Park did, where it was like, oh my god, I'm so startled.
Yeah, they just... Yeah, that was quite good. But I think that's something to do with, like the fact that, like, now anyone can make a film. Like, you've got cameras all over the place, and it's like, you know, that it actually becomes now that, like, the first person perspective is actually the most restricted perspective. And when you've got like a society or a system where you've got these hundreds and hundreds of possible viewpoints, you can view a situation on 100 different channels and 100 different people blog about it and that kind of stuff. Like, the first person perspective is kind of like the last point where, you know, it's completely isolating. It removes all that, and I think that's where that comes from. I think that's why these kind of first-person walking sim games have kind of become so popular, really, because it's, you know, it's very isolating. I mean, we talked about it when we talked about Resident Evil. It's like, it's, you know, like Resident Evil 7. It's like that first-person perspective just really took that game to a different level. Like, it wouldn't work in any other way.
Yeah, it tightens your viewpoint so much. I mean, I saw a thing on Twitter the other day. Someone's attempted to remake Resident Evil 7, but like, so it plays like Resident Evil 1.
Oh god, that's going to be painful. That's going to be really painful.
So it plays from a third-person perspective and stuff, and I was looking at it.
It's like fixed camera angles.
Yeah. So it's like grotty corner of the kitchen and like set hallways and stuff, and it was like, this just... It's weird, but like, when people were looking at it, they're going, from a game design perspective, the Baker house isn't that dissimilar to, like, the mansion.
No, it's not. It's a lot smaller, but it's very similar.
Yeah, and it's like, it's got that kind of same sort of atmosphere and vibe to it, but because you're forced into that first-person perspective, there's more opportunity for you to get scared shitless because you're more ingrained in it, you're more close to it, which is why most of the scares involve you going around a corner or being turned round or being face-to-face with something.
Well, it's actually a very similar thing to the first Resident Evil. Like, I reckon that if Resident Evil never happened before, you know, and they were making it again, I reckon they would be making it, like back then, if they had the technology, they'd be making it in a first-person perspective, because that's what those fixed camera points did. They kind of made it so that the horror was always kind of outside of your field of vision, and you were kind of almost fighting the game to see it. And you know what I mean? You always
knew you were walking towards it.
Yeah, exactly. It's very, very clever. Very clever. But now you don't really have that. You've just got these first-person perspective games where you hide in a cupboard for hours and hours and hours.
Yep.
I mean, I'm taking the piss out of them or like talking shit about them like they don't scare me. They do. I'm a massive pussy when it comes to horror games, but I like them still. Like, horror stuff's my kind of thing. Like, I've always been interested in it, so it's like,
I like the psychology behind it, but I'm not a big fan of it. Like, I'm like, the horror films I only like because they're fucking daft and because they've aged horribly, and that makes them funny.
You like some of the 1970s kind of, or 60s, 70s horror comedies, like well, I'm sure you've seen. Have you seen The Fearless Vampire Hunters?
Yes.
That's a great film. That's actually hilarious, that film. It's really good.
I've seen.
But it also has that kind of horror vibe to it as well, like the actual really thick atmosphere, really good.
Yeah, like lots of dry ice and smoke, and then just, what the hell's going on? And...
Yeah, very daft.
Yeah.
Physical comedy. Yeah.
Exactly. Right, so what's next on the big list of horror topics?
Games that inexplicably shit you up.
Games that inexplicably shit you up.
Yeah. You've put Ravenholm down.
Oh, yeah, like, I put Ravenholm.
Do you mean parts of games that inexplicably...
The Ravenholm bit in Half-Life 2 shit me up. But games that inexplicably shit me up, out of all of them, the Bioshock that made me jump the most was Infinite. And I don't know why.
Oh, what, the bit in the Crow people who worship John Wilkes Booth?
Well, there's the Crow people, but more the You know, the guys who are like the sentries, and you've got to sneak up past them all. There's the big there's these guys who've got like big sirens on their heads.
Oh fucking hell! Yeah, I remember them.
Because the bit there's a bit where you get to the end of it, you turn around, there's one right fucking behind you.
Yeah,
and it was just like that. And I think, it's like you said, what it did well was it wasn't necessarily that the rest of the game was scary. It was that the prevailing atmosphere that was on Columbia was just so tense because it just did feel like a powder keg.
But that's what I loved about Columbia as a place, though, is that like it looks so utopian, like from the outset, and then it just gets deserted and there's no one there, and it's like that's quite scary.
Yeah, it became sinister. Like the more you peeled back what was going on with it, and the more you jumped from version of it to version of it, you realised just how systemically fucked it was. And I think that was what freaked me out, because that was the bit of it that, like the overall story of it, like the actual single player, it was a bit like, this is pretentious shit. But the actual setting and what was going on around the actual story was the bit that stuck with me, because I was like, this is the bit that's freaking me out.
Well, I think even Bioshock 1, like, even the first Bioshock had that kind of atmosphere. Like, people probably wouldn't call it a horror game, but I'd say it's a lot more horrific and has a lot more in common with horror than what a lot of people who say what horror games are now actually are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
Yeah, I think it's got, you know, like we were talking before about like the sort of first-person survival horror kind of vibe to things. I think that's got it, where you were kind of scrounging off stuff and you were worrying about your ammo and all that kind of thing.
It's a town full of psychopaths where the psychopaths were allowed to be themselves. You know what I mean? It's like that artist bit in it.
Oh, Sander Cohen is terrifying.
Yeah, that is absolutely, like, that's brilliant. That I love that part of the game. That's one of my favourite parts of Bioshock, or of probably that generation. Really, it was just so macabre. You know what I mean? Like an artist who's, well, a psychopath who's finally allowed to do whatever he wants to anyone because he's an artist. Apparently, like, just the egomania of it is like, that's amazing. I'm surprised that's not been done before. Or maybe it had been done before, but it's been done really well. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I mean, that's the thing. I think Bioshock games inexplicably shit me up more than they should have done. But the one that's just sprung to mind that shit me up way more than it had any business to was what's it called? The Arkham Knight. There's a submission with Professor Pig, where you find all these bodies that have been strung up, and you eventually work out where he is and what's going on, and you go and fight him, and he's just this big fat fucking beautician singing opera and throwing meat cleavers at you. And I was like, this is proper weird. He keeps referring to people as these dollies and stuff, and it's just like, it just sits a bit creepy.
Well, it's like they didn't really. I think there was a missed opportunity with Victor Zsasz, because, like, is it Victor Zsasz?
Yeah,
I know it's Zsasz,
the one with the tally marks cut all over it.
Yeah, like, as far as like a villain goes, like, he was genuinely a serial killer, wasn't he? Like, that was his thing.
Mm-hmm.
He was a psychopath, and it's like, I mean, granted, you're Batman. Why would you be scared of a man with a knife? You're Batman, but it's like,
it should have been the time frame, shouldn't it? It's like, when Zsasz is loose, you've got to go and find him because
someone is going to die. It's like, you know, it's. But I think those games as well, like, especially like Asylum as well, had a really good atmosphere to it, and there was times, like, granted, you weren't, and I think this is one of the reasons why it wasn't a horror film. You felt powerful in it. You were Batman. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not a horror film, a horror game. Like, you were Batman. You could deal with anything that was being thrown at you. I mean, granted, there was an element of danger to it, but you weren't necessarily scared of anyone.
Odds, wasn't it? In that, was the threat. It was the odds against Batman. Whereas the Scarecrow stuff, where it gets all trippy and weird, and that's what it was. It was like, it wasn't that the Scarecrow stuff was scary. It was that it was weird in comparison to everything else.
Yeah.
Whereas I always thought that if it actually played upon Batman's fears, those would have been bits where you had to relive and were faced with Batman's failures. And I thought that would have been a much more interesting angle to take than just going, "Ooh, look, there's the Joker. Ooh, there's a big version of the Scarecrow there, and you need to shine the bat signal on him."
Yeah.
They used what could have been a really cool psychological section, especially in a game set in an asylum, for light platforming.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean.
That's always kind of sat weird with me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely quite a strange one. And it's always a bit weird with Batman with a lot of comic book things, because, like, you get people like Victor Zsasz who, you know, you would genuinely be terrified of in real life, then it, like, takes to the opposite end of being a complete fantasy with people like Poison Ivy or Mr. Freeze or someone like that.
But they've got the weird they've kind of got the tragic monster side to them, haven't they? So
yeah, they do. They're kind of almost a Frankenstein's monster kind of thing.
I think the Batman as a franchise owes a lot to old horror films and monster movies and old gangster movies, because it's literally where they've pulled everybody from. Like, the Joker's inspired by The Man Who Laughed.
Yeah. With his big creepy smile.
Big weird rictus grin on the main character of it and stuff like that. And it was...
Yeah. It is it's pretty terrifying. You see some of those pictures of, what was the actor's name, wasn't it?
It's the guy, isn't it?
Is it it's not Max Schreck, is it?
No, the guy in The Man Who Laughed, isn't it? Oh god, what's he called? The guy who plays Cesar in Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Oh, I can't remember his name.
Do you know who I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly.
I can't remember his name, and it's really annoying me because he's fascinating. It's like, just as an actor, like, reading up on him was just, like, completely fascinating, to the point that you could probably make a really good biopic film about him, because his life was just mentally interesting.
Right.
Like, there was all sorts of weird shit to do with the Nazis. Like,
as there always is.
Yeah. Like, I can't remember his name.
In fact, that's probably one of the games that kind of shit me up a bit, was Return to Castle Wolfenstein. Like, I was expecting
the original.
No, not Wolfenstein 3D. Return to Castle Wolfenstein was the one that came out probably when we were in high school.
The one that was on the Quake 3 engine.
I'm not sure if it was Quake 3. It may have been. Could have been a modified version of the Quake engine. Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
But, yeah, because I wasn't... Because I kind of got that off a friend when... Like, I got a pirated version off a friend, and he was like, oh, it's just like a war game just shooting Nazis and stuff, and it's like... I wasn't expecting the catacombs bit and all the monsters.
Yes.
Wasn't expecting that at all. And it's like... And... Because it was like... quite a difficult game as well. You really did feel kind of underpowered a lot of the time, and it was kind of like fighting for your life. But then again, I mean, I think thinking about it, like horror game wise, things that like really shit me up, like it's only really obvious ones with me. It's only things like PT, and like PT was scary. The beginning of Resident Evil 7 is fucking intense. Like, that's some real intense stuff, but like stuff that shouldn't have scared me that did would maybe be things like
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't really think of anything. I've been trying to think of something all day for it, but nothing's really come to mind. Like, generally with stuff that isn't scary, like there's stuff that's like makes you uneasy and whatever. Like, there's like one that comes to mind is in Final Fantasy VII when you're going around Nibelheim, like when you actually get there, and it's just full of those Sephiroth cultists, and it's like,
oh god, yeah,
like just with the music and stuff like that, it's a little bit not scary. It isn't scary, but it's like there's a definite atmosphere to it that makes it quite strange. But
you think it's true to say that it's not so much games that it's not so much the actual scare elements in games, like something popping out at you or anything. It's the atmosphere it creates.
That's something that gets me. It's like, because, well, I was going to say this, like, that's probably one of our next things, like, what's your least favourite scare tactic in a game? And I'd say jump scares, like that thing of, like, it going really quiet and then all of a sudden a loud noise and something just comes in, like, doesn't come in your face. That's weird. But,
so far, you've been a game where you run around as Rutger Hauer, jacking it off stuff, and, mate, you got chuggied on the brain.
It's been a long week, I'll say that. No, I mean, yeah, like, where something like just jumps out at you.
Yeah, like,
because I don't think that's scary. Like, it's startling, but that's a biological reaction. You can't help that. You can't help jumping at something. I just think it's really cheap.
Yeah.
When you've got things out there that, like, I know I bang on about it every bloody Halloween, but Silent Hill 2 is a game that, like, is scary. Like, the atmosphere in that game. Every time I play it, I don't want to play it. I want to kind of just turn it off and go, like, I feel disgusting playing that. Like, not because of, like, the outdated tank controls and how muddy it all looks now, but because, like, the actual subject of the game and what it's actually about and some of the things that are happening in it. And the general, like I say, the general atmosphere it's just really fucking dark.
Yeah.
Like, everything's covered in this kind of, like, oily film, and it's like all the monsters just feel dirty and horrible. And they are, because they're all some kind of, like, psychological manifestation of the people who are in there. Like, all the shit that they're fucking terrified of. Like, and as far as I was aware as well, it was the only game at that time talking about, like death, honestly. Like, it's like that kind of thing, that was scary. Like, that had some definite scary moments in it. Not, I opened a door and there was something stood right in the way. Like, because that's going to startle you anyway. Like, that's not scary. Like, I don't, honestly, like, that, it actually annoys me. Someone who's, like, a real horror fan, jump scares are probably the laziest thing that developers do. Well, to say developers or designers, whoever makes that shit up, do. And I think that if you're going to do horror, do it properly. Actually have something horrific happen, rather than it just being a scary looking monster jumping out at me.
Yeah. There's a game coming out that's built in the CryEngine that's about being a monster hunter. It's a co-op thing.
Yeah.
And I watched some demo footage of it, and they're literally hunting this creature. You don't know what it is. And then they're going up, they basically go around the map, they interrogate people, they follow clues and stuff. And they work out that it's in a barn, and they're going towards this barn, and all the front of the barn's covered in web, and you're like, oh, it's gonna be a big fucking spider. Is what I was thinking, there's just gonna be a giant spider in that barn. And then you go in the barn and there's nothing there, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on? And it turns out that the thing they're hunting isn't as big as you thought it was. Still, like, person size.
Yeah,
but
a man spider.
Yeah, but no, it's just a really, really big fucking demonic spider. But it moves super fucking quick and scuttles everywhere and stuff. And I was like
a spider actually does.
Yeah, and I was
pretty unsettling.
I was like, nah, that game can get all of the way to fuck.
But that's the thing, like, that's not, like, a lazy thing. Like, that's
atmosphere actually working.
Yeah, that's finding something that makes people uncomfortable, not, like, makes them physically jump because it's a biological reaction. That's
playing on phobias.
Yeah, exactly. And they do that in Resident Evil 7 as well with, I think it's Margarita, her name is. Like, that's where I stopped playing it last time. Because the way she moves and, like, what happens to her body as she's transforming is... Because she essentially turns into spider monster, but it's like somewhere between The Thing and, well, the older Resident Evils, like this real kind of Cronenberg-esque body horror thing, but they get the movement down like perfectly, and how like her limbs elongate, and it's just this really, it's just a fucking awful design.
I imagine giving Resident Evil 7 the sound of her changing is fucking horrible as well.
Oh yeah,
like cracking
it's pretty
and all
grotesque.
That sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty grotesque, and like, but that's what I mean. Like, that's horror. You know what I mean? Something that makes you feel uncomfortable, not something that makes you go, "Oh shit."
I like implied horror. That's the bit I like, is like when you know something's happened, but it's not shown it, and you kind of glimpse a bit of the aftermath, and it's how your mind fills the gap.
Well, that's good horror.
That's what made all of the old Universal movies so fucking scary, was that because the Hays Code and stuff. Was the Hays Code? Freaking Hollywood laws that were bullshit. And it was kind of, because of those, the 1930s Dracula with Bela Lugosi, you don't even see his teeth.
No, you weren't allowed to show him.
You weren't allowed to show the fangs.
You weren't allowed to show anything go, because it was the same with Psycho. You weren't allowed to actually show a foreign object piercing a human body. Like, because that's another thing as well, that shower scene in Psycho, the violence is so well implied that they may as well have been showing you someone getting stabbed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, that's just how masterful Hitchcock was as a filmmaker, but yeah, it's the same with the Universal horror films as well. Like you say, it's
not as well done as stuff like Psycho, but it's still kind of...
But you gotta think, it's a good 30 years before Psycho, and what these guys were doing were telling a horror story when essentially you weren't allowed to tell a horror story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like you gotta think about how like a vampire dies in most films now. You think about how it is in like every modern Dracula film, for example. And then you think about how it is in like the archetypal Dracula film is, you see Van Helsing walk over to a box, and then you see the reaction of some people, he's you a FUD, and then just Bela Lugosi going, ugh! And that's it.
Yeah.
That's literally the whole thing. You just, the end.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of, it's the implication of it, because you know what's gone on. You fill that gap in your head. And I love that about horror films. That's what I've always wanted to try and write whenever I've written a horror film.
It's like the way that you think about cinema in general, and video games as well. They're a collection of media. Like, it's sight, it's light, it's sound, it's everything. If you want to make something scary, you have to utilise all of those things at once in the best possible way. And that's what good horror is. That's what those 1930s horror films are. The lighting in those films, Chris, there's nothing like it now, because they don't have to do it. But back then, all these like tricks of the light.
Dwight Fry, it was just individual camera shots as well. Like Dwight Fry at the bottom of the stairs on the boat in Dracula, just peering up in the light, and he's the only thing you can see on a boat where everybody's dead, and he's just stood there giggling.
Yeah.
That's fucking terrifying, because when you think about it, he knows what else is on that boat, as well as the fact he's insane. And it's like, that's the bit that really got me, because that's like the bit at the end of Psycho where he's talking about how he wouldn't hurt a fly. And it's like, when you see bits where it's like, the killer's in the room with a load of people, but he doesn't want to reveal he's the killer. But you can see that compulsion kind of building up, and he doesn't do it.
Well, that's one of the things that Psycho does, like, I would say, like, much better than a lot of the horror films of the 70s, like the slasher films, is it really, like, you can see, like, Anthony, what's his name? It's not Anthony Daniels, that's C-3PO. Anthony Perkins. Like, you can see Anthony Perkins, like, I think it's Anthony Perkins. Is Anthony Perkins?
It's something Perkins, isn't it?
Yeah. you can see him like gearing up for it. You know what I mean? And that final scene where he sat there at the table, like, I remember being a kid and watching that. Like, I must have only been about 12 years old, and it scared me. Like, that's something that actually scared. That's when I was kind of realised that, you know, some people are just beyond help.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was all acting. Like, this is before, like, I read up on, you know, serial killers and all that kind of stuff. In fact, it was probably the reason why I started reading up about them and started getting interested in all that stuff when I was a teenager, was because I watched Psycho and I wanted to, it was compelling, you know what I mean? And that's something that horror has to be as well. It has to be compelling. Like, you have to not want to watch, but you have to not want to look away either. Like, The Shining is a perfect example of that, and I've probably banged on about The Shining more than once on this, so I'll try and keep it short, but that's, in my opinion, it's the perfect horror film. It's got psychopaths in it, it's got ghosts in it, like, what is scarier than a hotel with only, like, 3 people in it? Like, there's so much ground to cover, and it's the atmosphere of that film is just amazing. Yeah, it is. And it's the way, like, it's all the little things as well. Like, when you notice, like, the path that Danny takes on his tricycle, they're impossible paths. Like, there's one part where he goes left and then left and then left again, which would typically put you back on your original path, but he's in a completely different part of the hotel at that point.
Yeah, and you wouldn't notice that when you're first watching it.
Exactly, and it's genius, absolute genius. But it's that idea of living in a labyrinth, and that kind of being, you know what I mean, like, kind of, because that's what the film is kind of all about, really. It's kind of like everything there is like amazing. It's about being lost, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's that idea of sort of. But I think it plays. Good horror plays upon, like, really raw primal fears, like fear for your safety, fear of isolation, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
and it's games kind of do it in a different way, because you're not as detached from what's going on in front of you as you are when you're watching it on a film. Because you've got to interact with it in some way to get it to trigger.
Yeah.
But you've still got that level of distance between you and what's going on.
Yeah.
Which is why
you do.
Which is why I always thought VR would be great for horror and shit for everything else.
Oh, yeah. It's like, horror is one of those things that I think it's going to take a while to get right in VR. I think we're still kind of stuck in that jump scare phase where we think that to make a good horror game, you've got to make someone jump. And it's like, with VR, there's a lot of potential for that, but there's also a lot of potential for other stuff. Like, I would have loved to have seen what the Silent Hill guys would have done with VR.
Yeah. I think you'd have got something truly disturbing.
Yeah.
But I think you'd have had a game where, I still think
it'd been a benchmark.
A really good sort of horror game around the idea of a serial killer, where you're just constantly chasing them, and it's like you're just constantly coming across the aftermath and, like, crime scene investigation and stuff. Yeah, but it's like, but imagine it where it was like a first person thing. He was playing like you with one of the cops in Seven.
Well, I think that we will get something like that eventually, because that's what Heavy Rain kind of was in a way. It had that element to it, but that was written by David Cage, a man who he's tone deaf when it comes to plot. Yeah. I think we need people who can write proper stories, I think, before you get, like, the perfect horror game now.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's a completely different discipline story-wise to a novel or even to a film script. It's like there's so much more to consider because unless you're telling a linear story, which is just going to kind of go off, you've got to keep in mind that most games now let you kind of go off the beaten track. So you can break the narrative's flow so much more easily, and that must be, from a writing point of view, that must be an absolute bastard to try and contend with.
Well, from a writing point of view as well, probably more from a design point of view, you don't want to undermine the story. Like, with a lot of open world games and stuff like that, it's all about becoming more powerful over time. It's like you don't want to get to a point like where you've gone on, done all like the little side quests, got all the stuff, and the story's picking up this villain or something, and you take him out in one shot, because then it's not horror anymore. You've got too much power. You don't feel vulnerable, and that's half of what horror is. You want to still make it so that you feel vulnerable. I think a lot of the time now, like with a lot of games anyway, I think it's kind of counterintuitive to that. Like, unless it's like these walking simulators where the only thing you can do is walk away, like, they really run this danger of just being too powerful and not feeling scared of what you're fighting.
Yeah.
And apparently that's a big problem with Resident Evil 7 later on. You've just got so much ammo or so many options in terms of how to beat things, it stops being scary. And
yeah,
like I say, I've not finished it, but that's from what I've heard.
It's one of the things I read was there's like two halves to the game, and the second half of it is just more. It's less outright fear-inducing. It's more kind of, oh, what I'm looking at's a bit horrible. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like, a good example is Resident Evil 4. It's like there's a difference, like, the original, like, Resident Evil 1 and 2 and 3, like, 3 especially, is like, there's always that pressure that you are underprepared for whatever you're fighting, but then in Resident Evil 4, you're suplexing guys, and you've got a billion guns, and you never really feel like you're out of ammo. Like, well, in fact, the way that the game is set up, like, there's an algorithm in the background that always gives you just enough, so you always feel like a bit pressured, but you're not going to run out.
Yeah, you're not going to get to a point where, because the game relies on it because it's more actiony, that you're completely fucked.
Yeah, exactly.
So but that's quite clever.
It's actually really smart, because
I didn't know it had that. So I was
into account. It takes into account like how you're actually overcoming these enemies. Like, if you do a lot of what people say is the best thing to do, where you shoot them in the knee and then you kick them because it does a lot of damage, it'll give you less and less ammo because it sees that you're taking them down with less and less ammo. So it realizes how you're playing the game. It's so clever. Like, Resident Evil 4 doesn't get enough. I mean, it gets loads of praise, but it doesn't get enough praise for that kind of thing. It's a lot with that. Like, that's half of the fun in it, is how tense it feels, but knowing that you're never really going to run the risk of having nothing. There's
so much going on in the background with that decision as well, because it's like, not only is it making it so it's just tense enough for you to be like, after the fights, there's a sense of relief. It's like, Jesus Christ, I made it. It's not just that, it's the fact that the game's going, it relies upon you being able to win these fights, and there's this action element to it, but making it, understanding what it's trying to get you to do and what it's trying to elicit in a player, and still making sure they have the means for the game to be fun at the same time in an algorithm. That's, considering when it came out, that's super, super fucking clever.
That's what I mean. Like, Resident Evil 4 is like the ultimate action game, really. Like, if you ask me, it is. It's not a horror game, but it's got horror elements to it, but it's more of an action game, and it does so well at it. Something that the original Evil Within, while being a good game, kind of missed the point of, because in that game you really could run out of ammo like really quickly and really mess yourself up. But Resident Evil 4 just seemed to strike that balance. And
so have you played the second Evil Within yet?
No, I've not. I don't want to spend £50 on it.
Good plan.
As bad as that sounds. Because I really enjoyed the original one. Like, even the beginning bit that people hated because it was a stealth section, I didn't think was all that bad. It was just... I just thought it was powerful.
There's a stealth section in the game. They need to be... All stealth sections need to be optional.
Well, I thought this, like, The Last of Us made you do this. Why is that? Why do people not give that shit? You know what I mean? It's kind of the same thing, really.
The Last of Us put you in stealth sections where you had some degree of an option to take things down and thin numbers and stuff.
Yeah, I suppose
there wasn't necessarily an outright fail state of a stealth section going wrong. Which is what... it's actually one of the things Uncharted 4 does really well, is like it gives you the option to go in stealthily, but it also lets stealth go completely out the window if you fancy it. And I tended to play the whole game going, fuck it, I hate stealth sections. So I was just like, give me a gun, get the drop on a couple of people, run off, and then just keep like hit and run kind of little mini fights, just thinning out numbers until there was just like one or two guys left that you could just go pick off. But stealth sections just don't work in games. And in horror games, when you've already got... Because they're badly done stealth sections where it's a win or lose situation. In a horror game, they're fucking shit because they mean that you're kind of railroaded.
Yeah,
and
they are.
It means all of a sudden that you've got that thing where it's like, I'm expecting to get through this stealth section. I'd be like, oh, phew, look at me, I'm safe. Oh, no, wait, no, I'm not. So immediately following this stealth section, I'm going to have to run.
It's like, see, it's one of those things where it's like, if the entire game is a stealth thing, like Alien Isolation, for example, it's like a really decent part of like the fun in a way is sneaking around, and it's like that game makes it like kind of not fun. Like that's the wrong word. Alien Isolation is not fun. It's it's
by definition of what a game is, it's not even a game because games are implied fun.
Yeah, it's torture. It's absolutely terrifying, but that's where it comes from. It's not like Observer is like a perfect example of it, where like the stealth sections, they're barely stealth sections. They're just kind of like, right, we'll just stay away from the thing and you'll eventually get to where you're going, and then, oh, wait a minute, it nearly caught you, you've got to run now, and it's just so engineered. It doesn't feel as organic as, say, something like Alien Isolation. And I think that's what kind of happens with these stealth sections in games. They just feel really forced and lazy. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And yeah, I think that's what happens a lot of the time with these stealth sections. But yeah, I mean, because I kind of felt that about The Last of Us anyway. Like the stealth sections of The Last of Us were kind of boring and ultimately pointless because they always ended up you having to like get out of the place.
The only stealth section in that game that worked was when you're going through is it school or just a warehouse?
School.
And you're trying to get a pry door open, and the door you just come through swings shut, and there's one of the big fucking bloater things behind it, and it starts lumbering towards you.
I think that must be a different bit. I thought you were going to be like the bit under the school where you've got to kind of like put the generators on, but then you turn the generators on, and because it makes a noise because it's a generator, all the clickers or whatever in the area like come for you.
Yeah, I know the bit.
And then you fight the bloater, because that seems to happen in loads of horror games, and it baffles me every frigging time. It's like, we'll clear them out first.
Yeah.
But, you know.
It's like, well, that's the thing that bugs me about The Last of Us, is you kind of go like, right, so if you've got a gas mask on, you can avoid the cordyceps stuff.
Yeah.
Why the fuck haven't the army just, gone, everyone who's not infected, get in these places, napalm everything else? It was one of those things you kind of looked at and you went, fire would be useful here.
But it's the same thing with a lot of zombie games, and zombie things. It's like, it's just in a sense, it's just framing. It's just a framing device. It's not it's not there. Like it's kind of inconsequential in a way. Like it's just there. So like you situate, like you are in this situation. It's like, well, what if they did this instead? It's like, it doesn't matter. That helps nothing. You're in this situation. It's like, you know what I mean? I get really bored with fucking zombie stuff these days. It's not scary, and it's really fucking overplayed. The Walking Dead shit. There you go. I got mad at The Walking Dead.
Finally, someone else fucking said it.
Yeah, it's fucking wank. It's like a bunch of unlikable people that are pretty much dead anyway, so what's the point? It's just going to be the same stuff over and over again.
I saw a thing
right in my nerves.
I saw a thing that said The Walking Dead is a shonen manga for edgelord wankers.
It pretty much is.
It's literally, he's the main character, but instead of him being lazy but insanely powerful, he's a dickhead. And then every so often it goes, oh look, he's a new lunatic leading a bunch of lunatics.
We've got to get to a new town.
Oh, and he's dead. Oh, there's some zombies. Oh, there might be zombies. Oh, someone's died. Oh, they've got back up. Tearful moment where they have to kill that zombie. And it's just like, this is good. It's rinse and repeat. And it's like they're about
Goku
half...
surrounded by Yamchas. That's all it is.
Oh my god, that is the best way to describe The Walking Dead.
That's essentially it. Goku surrounded by Yamcha. That's all it is.
I love that. That is the best analogy for The Walking Dead ever.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write that. I'm writing that shit down, sir.
Excellent. But yeah, last thing on the list, I think, really, or second to last anyways, horror games for non-scary boys. Now, I had a big think about this, right? And I can't think of many. The one that I think of the most, which I think you've got, because I'm pretty sure I got it, yeah, was Gregory Horror Show.
Yeah.
But that's because it's fun. It's a bit weird, but it's very fun.
It was a very good game.
Yeah, it's very fun. It's where, like, but it's like the puzzle aspect to it, where you've got to pay attention to the people in the hotel.
Yeah.
To figure out what you need to do. Like, that was amazing. And it's like after a certain time, the nurse with the big syringe comes after you. And granted, it's not scary because she's just like a big pink lizard. And it's not very scary because it's all like blocky, fun, cartoony stuff. But it definitely had an atmosphere, a very creepy atmosphere to it.
Yeah.
And that was a budget game. Like, that was released as like, I think it was released at like 15 quid. It was a great little game. They should really redo that, I think, or at least get more options.
Well, it was on the PS2, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, just stick it as a download on the PS4. People would play it.
Well, people are fucking playing Rogue Galaxy again, so they should fucking play that.
See, this is the thing. I can't remember hating Rogue Galaxy when I played it.
I just thought it was boring.
And I can't remember... Yeah, this is the thing. It's like, I can't remember hating it. But that's probably worse, because it's a bit like I'm nothing, that game.
Yeah. It was one of those JRPGs that, like... Well, yeah, exactly. It was one of those JRPGs where there was so many better JRPGs out there. It was just like...
Well, when you look at wasn't it Rogue Galaxy sort of came out around the same time as stuff like Kingdom Hearts 2 and Akami and God of War 2? There was all sorts of stuff tail end of the PS2 life cycle. That kind of got lost in amongst.
It got a lot of goodwill because it was done by Level 5. And...
They are the men.
Well, they are the men, but this one wasn't. It must have been... For some reason, whatever reason, it just wasn't as good as Dragon Quest.
Do you know what? I don't remember it being a bad game, but like you said, I just don't think it was anywhere near as... I mean, I loved the leveling on it, where it was the item stuff.
Yeah.
But the second you got to a point you didn't have an item and you didn't have the bits to craft it, the game became a fucking grind. Yeah. It became an MMO where you're backpedaling on yourself to find shit that you needed. And I got stuck on it. There was a point where you had to fight on a mining planet. And it was like the last boss on the mining planet was like another dog. And it was fucking impossible. And it was because I didn't have one particular skill meant that one of his abilities just wrecked me.
Yeah, but that was the way with a lot of those ones. I remember Final Fantasy XII having something quite similar where if you didn't have the right skill or the license for the right weapon or something, like certain bosses would be a right pain, if I remember rightly.
I remember
we're digressing now
because
because we're talking about JRPGs.
No, but,
that was Gabranth.
Yeah, I remember that. That was some bullshit. But they may not be horror games, but they had moments in them that were horrible, which I suppose is a vague link.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, horror games that... See, I think we probably already covered it. It's medieval.
Yeah, medieval.
You want stuff that's kind of like... got that kind of scary element, but isn't actually scary, like... what's that one called where you're that girl going back to her house?
Gone Home?
Gone Home. Stuff like that. I really liked Gone Home. And I'd say that's kind of like a... It's like a haunted house sort of experience, but the key thing is there's nobody in the house.
Deadly Premonition.
Yes.
Yeah. It can't possibly be
It can't
scary.
be scary because it's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, it can't be scary because it's just so bad, but it's got an atmosphere to it. And it's a lot of fun.
I see it as like the Plan 9 from outer space of games.
Of video games. Yeah, that's a really good analogy about it, actually. What else is there? Parasite Eve, like, they were quite good. They weren't particularly horror games, they were more RPGs, but they had like a strong kind of... It was essentially Resident Evil if it was an RPG. Very kind of similar.
You say, like, when we've talked about horror, we've talked about like a weird prevailing tone to them and just like an unsettling vibe.
Yeah.
You know what could be quite good as a horror game for a non-horror boy? The Oddworld stuff, like Abe's Exodus and Abe's Odyssey, and
definitely.
even things that are similar, like Heart of Darkness and stuff like that. Like, we're going old PS1 games at you, but...
Well, think about fucking Oddworld. You're cutting up an entire... It's genocide. That's Nazi level horror. That's bad.
Like the worst thing that's ever happened, is what that is.
Exactly. So yeah, definitely the Abe games would be a really good example. Because it's got
everything. They actually have everything when you think about it. We've talked about what works in horror games. Kind of, you've got your atmosphere, you've got your setting, you've got that sense of pressure. You've got like
you're very underpowered as well. It's like because if you see a Slig or a Slig sees you, you're dead.
Yeah,
unless you can run away from it
or possess it.
Yeah. But yeah, I never thought of them like that, actually. That's a really good idea. That's a really good one. But yeah.
Anything else? What else there is? Horror games that aren't really scary. The Witcher.
Yeah, The Witch definitely has elements of it.
You're basically fucking Van Helsing, aren't you? So it's like...
Pretty much, yeah.
You're in a horror setting. You're in a quite sort of gothic fantasy setting. But it's not scary.
Yeah.
Shitload of fun, though. Love that game.
Oh, yeah. Well, you've got things like Fallout that definitely has a horror elements to it in places and that kind of stuff. But I don't remember ever being particularly scared in Fallout. But like some of those underground vaults and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just a general sense of tension and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, even stuff like... I was just having a quick look through my Steam library then. But there's stuff like... fucking hell, where's it gone? Like the horror expansion to Skyrim, where it's about vampires and shit.
Oh, Dawnguard.
That's the one. That Half-Life 1 had a pretty
See, Half-Life 1, I'd argue, is my favourite horror game, thinking about it. Like, one that actually kind of makes me jump and scares me and stuff, because you feel underpowered. You feel, even though you've got shitloads of weapons, I always felt underarmed.
Yeah.
And you always had this prevailing sense that there was something bigger going on around you, and that's always scary.
Yeah, and definitely. And it was it was very like cosmic horror kind of thing, wasn't it? It was like you felt just so insignificant in the face of all these like aliens that seemed like way powerful and stuff. It's quite good actually. There's a few PSP games called Corpse Party that I would recommend to people who don't like scary games but seem to like horror stuff. They're very
the non-Persona Shin Megami Tensei games.
Well, not really. There's not really any fighting in it. It's more like a visual novel with bits where you have to walk around and run away from things. Like, I found it a bit difficult. Like, I can't say I enjoyed it, but like, if you're looking for a scary game, like, it's got that very kind of Japanese urban legend kind of thing where it's like, if you sit in this classroom and look at the board, after a certain time, the chalk will move by itself, and it's the ghost of this teacher who killed someone, and you know what I mean? Yeah. Like that kind of thing, where it's all very overplayed and very kind of campfire ghost story kind of stuff. Which is it's quite fun, but, and there are some very funny moments to it, but, I couldn't really get my head around it. Like, I couldn't imagine playing for a very long time, just because they were quite, I don't know, I found them quite tiresome. I don't know, I think that's the only way to really put it. Just found them a bit boring in places.
Yeah. I mean, like, Japan had a habit, didn't they, sort of around the end of the PS2 and early PS3, they did a lot of really weird, more ghost story-led horror games. Like Forbidden Siren and stuff like that.
Well, Forbidden Siren,
Forbidden Siren's the one with the camera, isn't it? Am I thinking of Forbidden Siren, where you take photos of stuff?
No, that's Project Zero.
That's the one.
But Forbidden Siren is another one. And there was also Michigan, which was odd. Like, Michigan's a horror game that isn't particularly well known, I don't think.
Outside of that Pennsylvania special.
Was it on that?
Was it on? Yeah, that's where I heard of it. I'm sure it was on
Michigan.
Yeah, they did a thing about horror games. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was. It was on, yeah. Michigan, Project Zero, Forbidden Sirens, I think was another one on the Pennsylvania one. And they also did, they did an episodic one on the PS3 called Blood Curse that was really good. I really like that.
Yeah.
But that got a bit scary. I got to a point with that one where I was a bit like, nah, I don't want to play this anymore. Eternal Darkness on the GameCube. Now that was fun. That used to mess with you. Like, that had Psycho Mantis levels of...
That was the one that was like blue screen in you and all sorts of shit, wasn't it?
Yeah, like had a sanity gauge thing. It was kind of like the first time that... Well, I don't know if it was the first time, but it was the first time I ever came across that in a video game. And that was very fun. Like, you get things like you think, is it glitching out? And then you get like a message saying your save has been corrupted, and you'd be like fucking tearing your hair out, and then you're like, the game's just fucking with me, it's fine.
So it's the tell you what, horror game for non-horror boys, Alone in the Dark, the remake that they did.
Oh, what, Inferno on the 360 or...
Yeah, the one that came out on the 360 and the PS3.
Oh, that was so fucking bad.
Remember when we had to sell the collector's edition, and the collector's edition literally came with the Edward Carnby little plastic statue.
Yeah.
And it looked like someone had 3D printed a picture of David Duchovny and melted it. Melty David Duchovny statue for everybody.
Yeah. I remember playing that on a break once upstairs and just thinking, it's just so fucking bad. Why is this a thing? What happened?
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that though. Dead Island, that was shit.
Yeah. Dead Island was it Dead Island Riptide that got in trouble for, like, the special edition was potentially going to be a torso?
I'm not sure actually, it's one of the two. It was either that one or the first one. It was like a human torso, wasn't it?
Well, it was the torso of a woman in a Union Jack bikini. She didn't have any arms, didn't have an head, and
but she had a great rack.
Yeah, Ooh, horror game for non-horror boys. The original Dead Rising.
Oh, yeah. That's too much fun, that game. That's great.
You've got Dead Rising and Left 4 Dead, I'd say, as well.
Left 4 Dead's good. Left 4 Dead has its moments, but you're with people. Generally you're playing with other people, so you're not scared.
Yeah, Left 4 Dead, you're normally just laughing at the fact that it's kicking off, as opposed to... You're more like, oh my god, I've got to get through this bit, or oh shit, there's a tank, as opposed to... This is terrifying. And when you hear a witch, it's not so much tense as... It's not tense in the case of going, oh god, there's a witch. It's more tense in the case of looking at the gibbering idiots that you're with going, if any of you so much as fucking go near that.
See, what I always used to love doing, and this is probably why no one liked playing with me, is whenever I saw a witch, and everyone's sneaking around, I'd go right up next to her with a Molotov cocktail and just beam it at her and run in the opposite direction.
Do you remember when we were playing it once, and there was the safe room, and it was after Ollie had left us all to die in one game.
Oh, we locked him out.
There was a witch in the room with the safe room, and we would get into the safe room, and he was behind us, and we were all going really slowly, and you were in, and I think it might have been either Fred or Jack that we were playing with was in. And then I got in, turned around, shot the witch, and slammed the door. We were like, no, fuck you, dude. It was just Ollie on his back going, I deserved that. Fair play, I deserved that.
I'm not going to lie.
I deserved
it.
I had that coming.
Yeah. Yeah, that's spooky games, I think, really.
Yeah. We've talked about a specific genre that wasn't JRPGs. We tried, but we didn't.
We had a moment. Where we went on JRPG.
Can't help it.
Yeah.
You can't help it. I mean, this is the thing. It's like, we're a week away from Mario, and I'm hyped for Mario. But the problem with being a week away from Mario is it means we're a week away from Call of Duty. And getting Call of Duty means I'm less than a month away from Xenoblade. It's like, that's the way I'm looking at it. I'm going, I've got my Mario, I've got my Call of Duty, I've got my Xenoblade, then I'm going to barricade the door of my flat, tell work I've got leprosy, and not leave the flat till February.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult one, because what I'm going to do, I've already paid for Call of Duty, so in for a penny, in for a pound on that one.
Yeah, I'm only buying it because you've been an idiot.
Yeah, thank you. But, no, it's like, there's Mario, which I'll probably get because I won't have the internet for a while, so I'll probably get Mario.
And you've got a little boy who will go apeshit looking at that game.
He will love Mario. The fact that you can be a dinosaur on it, he will.
Dinosaur with a moustache.
Exactly, and a little hat. He will love it. So I've got to get Mario. But then there is Xenoblade, and I've still not finished Persona, Chris. I think I've mentioned that on every episode since Persona's come out. Still not finished Persona.
Yeah, but you're getting to a point now where you're like, I'm fucked off Persona.
Well, I'm annoyed at it, but I want to finish it. It seems a shame to not finish it after putting 75 hours into it.
Yeah, you're not that far from finishing it, from what you've said.
Yeah.
But, like you said, you've also got moving and stuff coming in, so you've got stuff to be doing.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I could play it while I don't have the internet.
Yeah. That's probably the best time to do it, is just hammer it then.
But I won't get to check what everyone else has put on when the teacher asks you questions. I won't get to cheat.
You can.
I could just use my phone, I know, but yeah. I like the fact that I'm cheating in the game. The game lets me cheat.
Yeah. What I want, thinking about it. See, this is the thing. We keep saying there's too many games coming out. Thinking about it, big news this week, gaming-wise, has been EA shutting down the company that, while we're on about horror, made Dead Space.
Dead Space, yeah.
Which is a fucking great horror game.
Dead Space is... Dead Space 1 and 2 anyway. I didn't play the third one, but Dead Space 1 and 2 are pretty bloody good.
Dead Space 1 shit me right up.
I love Dead Space 1. Again, yeah, it kind of shit me up as well. I can remember there's like still some pretty big moments in that game where I was just like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what I'm doing. Dead Space 2 had some amazing moments in it. Dead Space 2 is excellent.
Well, this is the thing. With Dead Space 1, it was one of the first games where I've been playing it and I've gone, I'm never going to finish this. This isn't even one of those ones where it's like, I'm going to come back to this. This is one of those ones where it's like, there's absolutely no point me having this game. There's no point this being in my possession. I think I gave it to someone. I think I gave it to somebody in the end.
I remember I got it for Christmas, I think the year after it came out, actually. Because it came out, like, it was really weird. It was a funny little January outlier, wasn't it? It came out pretty much...
Did you not get it when I got it? Because I bought mine in Game Station because it was like 15-20 quid.
No, I think that was
like a deal
Dead
of
Space.
the week.
I'm not sure. That could have been Dead Space 2.
No, I never played Dead Space 2.
No, I got it. I definitely got it for Christmas because it had been out a good year by the time I played it, and I loved it. It was so good, so good, that game. That's a game that gets atmosphere right.
Yeah. EA have shuttered the company that make that, which means they've shuttered the company that was making the single player Star Wars game that I had actually set time aside to play. I was ready for that. I was like, yes, this is what I need. You got to make me forget the Force Unleashed ever happened. And they've canned it. And I was like, this is some bullshit. So as a result, I'm a bit like, do I really want Battlefront when it comes out? Do I really want to walk into a load of people screaming about loot boxes and all the shit that goes along with it? And I'm pretty sure I don't.
Well, I'm gonna probably wait on Battlefront, I think, because there is just so much. I mean, there's Mario, there's like I said, Mario, Xenoblade.
And we'll have Call of Duty, and we've both started playing Warframe.
Yeah. And there's fucking, what's the other one? That one that you showed me today.
Oh, Moonlighter.
That looks great.
That's getting bought. I'm having that.
Oh, I can't wait for that. That just looks like... That's one of those games we were talking about before, where it's going to be battering it down outside, it's going to be all cold, I'm going to be sat in with a nice cup of tea on my Switch, just going in some dungeons, getting some magic items to sell them for a buttload of gold.
Yeah, it's that... I just love the idea of that game. Just seems to have been, on an RPG, you go in a shop, and you go, oh wow, look at that sword, and then it's like, well, it's got to fucking come from somewhere.
Well, I think it's Dragon Quest V, I think it is, where the Chapters of the Chosen, where one of the Chosen is a merchant.
Yeah, he's in Dragon Quest Heroes 2.
Oh, Chris, you know what I found out today?
Go on.
Daddy Pig from Peppa Pig.
He's the King of Harbour in Dragon Quest Heroes 2.
Yes.
I tweeted about
he
that.
Is.
I tweeted that ages ago.
Did you?
With a gif of a slime looking shocked. I found that out because I was sat there going, I know that voice. Why do I know that voice? I fucking Googled it going, I'm sure that's Daddy Pig. And it was like, this is how much kids' TV I had to watch living at home. My niece, like, going, I'm fucking sure that's Daddy Pig. And it turned out he was, and I was like, yes!
Well,
Daddy Pig.
He's been in all sorts. He was in that Viking game as well.
Jesus.
Yeah, honestly, IMDb him.
Was he in
everything.
the greatest game for British voice acting that's ever existed?
What, Space Marine?
Well, the Fire Warrior one on the PS2.
No, I don't think he was in that. He was in Space Marine, though.
The one that nearly killed you in Game Station.
Oh, what?
When you were at one end of Game Station, I was at the other, and you were looking for a game, and I held up Fire Warrior, and you just went the length of the shop. Why the fuck would I want that? To which I shouted back as loud as physically possible, just, Brian, bless it!
Ah, yeah, I can remember that. Yeah, we had some good times.
I had this week, I've had so many game flashbacks. Like the guy with the fucking electrolarynx asking for a dance mat. It was just... I don't know what it was. I was just sat at my desk and someone was talking about going to an arcade and there being Dance Dance Revolution, and someone went, "Oh, I used to have a dance mat," and I just started pissing myself laughing, and it was like, what? And it was like literally tears streaming down my face, going, I just remember the guy coming into work, striding up to me, and then kind of, do you remember the Tanko Man adverts? Where he used to lean back before he slapped him. Imagine someone walking up behind you, leaning back like that, then pushing on their throat and going, "Have you got a dance mat?" And me going, "I'll go have a look in the back." Go in the back, like, am I being stitched up? This has to be a fucking hidden camera job. Going back out going, "No, I'm sorry, we've not." And him just going, balls, spinning on his heels and walking out. I had to go in the back again, and I was crying laughing, and I told you, because you were doing a delivery, and you were crying laughing, and we were going, we're fucking going to hell for this. But, Jesus Christ, it's worth it.
Yeah. Oh, man. So many times like that.
Because he came in again and asked for something else from someone else, and they came in going, "I thought you were talking shit when you talked about the man with the..." I think it might have been Joe. We're going, "I thought you were talking shit when you were talking about the man with the robot voice." And we're going, "He's not got a robot voice." It was horrible, but at the same time, you're like, Jesus. It's not even to do with horror.
No.
But it's still
although
funny.
he could be a good villain. It could make a good villain, I think.
Well, just a guy with an electrolarynx. Just talking like mid-90s Kane. Just "I'm going to kill you, X-Pac."
I think that's
We've
it.
gone
really,
off topic, so we should end there, I think.
Yeah. All the spooky vibes are gone now after that.
Yeah.
After that.
Which is good, because this is the thing. We're a week away-ish from Mario. When the next one of these goes live, after this one, we will have played Mario Odyssey. That is a good
Hopefully,
feeling. We'll have played Call of Duty.
That's a middling feeling. That's neither here nor there. It's like, it'd be fun.
It'll be fun. It'll be a good laugh. It'll be shit playing it on your own.
Oh, yeah.
But it'll be good. Anyway.
Yeah.
Let's end there. Happy Halloween, everyone.
Yeah, happy Halloween, and
avoid, trick-or-treaters, because they might not be trick-or-treaters, they might actually just be really short people dressed as monsters who want to kill you.
Like Don't Look Now.
Exactly.
Like a little midget serial killer in Don't Look Now. I'm sorry, but that's a load of bollocks. Has there ever been a midget serial killer?
Tic Tac? Is he called Tic Tac in The Man with the Golden Gun?
No, I'm talking about... well, I suppose so. But, I'm talking about creepy, serial killer, not Man with a Golden Gun.
Toulouse-Lautrec?
Toulouse-Lautrec.
Was he? He wasn't a serial killer, he was an artist, but...
Oh, well.
At the same time, he might have been. He might have been crazy.
Could have been.
Man used to drink absinthe mixed with brandy, so,
His mind he'll be rotten in the head, won't he?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like a serial killer. Right,
exactly.
We're off.
Right. Speak to you later, everyone.
Speak to you later.
Goodbye.
Bye.